Now hold on. It's not all bad news, because we have this story from Politico. We have another story too. Apparently, Mark Milley says it's possible the U.S. will work with the Taliban.
Okay.
Because of ISIS-K.
Cool.
So we have that, and then we also have the Biden administration is now considering giving the Taliban cash aid if they uphold their international obligations. So it seems like Biden's strategy was like, well, we can pay to have people there on the ground securing the country indefinitely, or we can pay the Taliban to just do whatever as long as they do the things we like. We know how that plays out. You give the Taliban cash, you encourage all the bad things they're doing, because then they're like, we'll keep doing bad things unless you give us more money. Then you give them money, the bad things go down for a few months, and they start coming back, and they say, well, maybe you got to give us more money. It's like that trope where the guy walks, the private detective walks in, and he's like, I need information. And then he's like, maybe I need a little cash. And then he hands him money, and the guy goes, maybe I need a little bit more. And he keeps milking it as much as he can. Yeah, you can't do that. It doesn't work.
Well, when you lose a war, the loser always pays. Period. We lost a war, therefore we pay. None of that surprises me. When you lose a war, you pay money. Yeah. Ask England, or even if you help somebody win a war, they still pay.
Well, you can also end a war with what's called a white peace, which is where nobody wins and nobody loses. It's just the war just stops. And that's probably what should have happened. But they surrendered. That's a different form of ending a war. That's when you give them money.
I think all this comes back to our original question that we formulated a while back. Dumb or diabolical?
Yes. Great game.
Dumb or diabolical? I'm leaning dumb here.
They're going to work with the Taliban and give them cash? I don't know if that's. I mean, it could be dumb and diabolical.
No, I just mean the entire thing is dumb. Every decision to go in, going all the way back to George W. Bush's decision to go in there, his announcement in the second inaugural address where he says that the American foreign policy goal is to end tyranny across the world. What? That was a radical transformation of American foreign policy that was doomed from the start. It's representative of progressive ideology, and it has now played out over 20 years where along the way, we tried to gender studies them up in the whole thing to make them peaceful and modern just like us, and it failed. It's dumb all down the way.
What did we do back in? Let me make sure I have the year right. What was the Cold War era in Afghanistan, the 1970s? Yeah. Who was it that was being trained and armed in the 1970s in Afghanistan by the United States?
Some bad guys that came later to blow us up.
Yeah, they call them the Mujahideen.
The Mujahideen.
Yeah.
The Mujahideen.
Yeah.
And the U.S. armed and trained them so they would fight against the Soviets and drive the Soviet Union out. And they did, and then later on broke off to form Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Then Al-Qaeda attacks us, and then Taliban takes over Afghanistan, and the U.S. goes, oh no, now we have to evade Iraq, I guess, because Saddam Hussein's bad, and that whole thing's going on, so then we did that. Of course, we went to Afghanistan first. And so I look at this, and I'm wondering, Jack, are they really dumb? Or is Iran about to get a whole lot of weapons? High-grade, advanced American weaponry, because Afghanistan can't maintain their own economy. Already we're seeing videos and photos of people lining up outside of banks by the hundreds because the economy just stopped. There's no central banker anymore. Not like I like central banking, but the people who ran that place are gone. You think the Taliban keep the power on? No. But I'll tell you what they can do. They can call up their buddies over in Iran and say, we need infrastructure help now. And Iran will be like, we see you got some pretty Blackhawks over there. So what happens, real quick, in 10, 15, or 20 years, when you've got a new ISIS armed with advanced American weaponry and they're causing problems and the older generation is retiring or many are passing on, we're all, we're going to be in our 50s and 60s, and the young generation, not remembering any of what happened, says, oh no, these evil people overseas are violent and oppressive. We should stop them. And the U.S. goes, oh no, look at all the weapons and all the terror. We have to stop them. So the U.S. arms and funds the Mujahideen. They become the Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, justification for our wars in the Middle East.
Yes.
Once again, and are we on that same track?
Probably, because we're stupid. We don't understand anything that's going on over there. We don't understand any of the historical tribal differences. We don't understand all of it. Now, but you brought up a lot of points. Just give me just a little bit of space to get to them. I have talked to a number of experts, military experts, U.S. Special Forces captains and pilots that have flown this type of equipment that is there on the ground, who operated in theater, logisticians whose job it was to support the aircraft and the helicopters that are on the ground in Afghanistan. And to a man, each single one of them told me the same thing. One, any of the technology that we gave the Afghanistan army was old stuff. It was not the latest and greatest. None of it. We didn't give them the highest, latest and greatest weaponry systems, and they weren't even the latest and greatest Black Hawk versions. 2, that China and Iran have both had access to this technology since the 80s. 3, that it will be impossible to sustain and maintain this hardware in that desert without the massive logistical support that comes with the United States military. So, and again, I get tons of pushback on this on Twitter. I don't know about any of this stuff. I'm literally talking to people that were in theater, in field, who know this equipment and know how it works, and this is what they have told me.
People often respond to us saying that Iran still uses, captured planes from the 70s.
They do, because now this is in the comparison. Again, I've had the same argument, and I researched the same thing. The difference between Iran and Afghanistan are vast. Iran is a fully formed civilization of thousands of years. They have their own domestic commercial aviation industry. They make planes and engines and stuff. Afghanistan doesn't even have electricity.
Jack,
Okay?
what
Big difference.
country is to the west of Afghanistan?
Now, to that point, as far as I understand it, and I'm not an expert, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. People tell me. Iran, Shia. Afghanistan, Sunni. How are they? They're natural born enemies. Why are they supporting each other? Are they supporting each other? I don't know. So all these arguments that I'm hearing about Iran's going to help Afghanistan and we're giving them all this equipment and whatever, upon further investigation, not all of that holds up.
I mean, well, I wouldn't say that doesn't hold up. Good argument, and obviously, look, we're a bunch of guys on the internet acting, they're talking about this great war, and I'm sure there's some E4 or whatever who's like he knows him so much more than we do.
I'm sure, but I've talked to the guys that actually know, who are in the field, that fly the things. That fly the things in Afghanistan, that have been there and done it and supported it. It takes, in order to do a hardware overhaul on a Black Hawk, it takes a year to disassemble it before it takes 2 years to put it back together.
Oh, yeah.
And that is just to support it from regular flight operations. And I see they're doing military parades and guys, by the way, that Black Hawk image of the guy hanging from it, he wasn't hanging. He was in a harness and he was waving to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, they were flaunting it. They weren't killing anybody. But the point is they're just joyriding this stuff around, which means it's going to degrade even more quickly. But they don't care because they beat us without any of that crap in the first place. Yep. You know why? Because they have time and they have mountains.
No. I'm pretty sure they had F-15s and nuclear weapons.
Right.
Joe Biden said you'd have to have that to defeat the U.S.
Yeah,
so clearly
they
did. And Biden's just keeping it a secret from us because if we found out the Taliban had nukes, we'd be real scared, right?
Indeed.
Or they're just mountain people with guns.
Mountain people with guns, which is exactly what I want to be here in the United States. And I had a friend joke that Appalachia will be the graveyard of empires.
Yeah.
Here in the United States.
Oh, wow. That's a cool...
Right? The graveyard of empires in Appalachia.
So I was watching this. I was reading something about why Afghanistan is just a terrible location, and it's because there's people who grow up there, who live there, who live in the mountains and subsist on mountain life, and we try to go in, and that's the high ground. It's very difficult to occupy for people. I mean, it's the altitude, it's the breathing, and so there's not a lot there. It's rocky, and it's just hard to hold. No great empire's been able to do it. So I wonder if that, then translates to Appalachia.
It does indeed. And I was just watching The Patriot the other night, and it's a historical significance aside. Powerful movie. But there's a great line in there where Mel Gibson is like, I taught you every back trail and cave and hideout in this region, and that's what we're going to do, and that's how we're going to use it. And that's what I've always been taught about the American Revolution, is that we ultimately won mostly because we knew the terrain and we could act in a guerrilla fashion, etc. But look.
I think that's a myth, actually.
That is why we won?
Yeah, I think
it wasn't because we stood up in front of the British and just shot more musket balls.
No, it was because the French intervened and Britain was strained. And then, the revolution went on for 20 years. The formal declaration happens sometime after there was already revolution and rebellion.
Yeah.
And there was shooting, and the British Empire was finally like, we can't do this anymore. But I do think the guerrilla tactics obviously did play a role, for sure. But I think it's overstated. I was reading something about it, and they were like, I think it's understated how much the French intervening was like.
I think the French wiped out the British Navy at some point.
It did, and they showed up there at the end, and it was really helpful. But to finish this one thought, look, if you're going to colonize a country, you can't just send a governor and some army guys and hope that you're going to change the nature of the country. You have to send families. You have to send settlers. Yeah. You have to send people to build cities and create culture and art and commerce and all these things, which is why actually we in the United States gained our independence is because they had to send actual humans and families and people to settle the United States. It wasn't just a colony in the Caribbean or in Africa where we could just send a governor and some troops and just extract the resources that we wanted from those countries. We had to actually send human beings to come live here and have their lives here, which is why, in a way, it was so successful that it was such a civilization that we were like,
Stories.
That's it to England.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.